I want to thank everybody for coming out. Rebinson, if you would read 12 verses of our Torah Parsha today, please.
All right. We're in Parsha 38, Korach or Korah, and that is in Numbers 16:1 through 18:32. So beginning 16:1. And Korah, son of Yitzhar, son of Kehath, the son of Levi, took both Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, sons of Reuben. And they rose up before Moshe with some of the children of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, called ones of the meeting, men of name. And they assembled against Moshe and against Aharon and said to them, enough of you, for all the congregation is holy, all of them, and Yahweh is in their midst. Why then do you lift up yourselves above the assembly of Yahweh? And when Moshe heard, he fell on his face and spoke to Korah and his company, saying, tomorrow morning Yahweh shall make known who is his and who is Kadosh, and come near to him, and let him bring near to him the one whom he chooses. Do this: take fire holders, Korah and all your company, and put fire in them and put incense in them before Yahweh tomorrow. And it shall be that the one whom Yahweh chooses is the Holy One. Enough of you, sons of Louis or Levi. And Moshe said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi. It is little to you. Is it little to you that the Elohim of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to perform the service of the Mishkan of Yahweh, and to stand before the congregation to serve him, and that he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you? Yet you seek the priesthood as well. Therefore, you and all your company are assembled against Yahweh. And Aharon, what is he that you grumble against him? And Moshe sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, we are not coming up.
Same thing. Abba Yahweh, we love you and appreciate you, Father. We thank you so much for allowing us to be in your appointed place on your appointed day. Father, thank you for allowing us to wake up this morning and be here in your house, Father, where we're supposed to be. Father, we just ask that you would touch our hearts and our minds, Father, that you would allow us and that you would give us the inspiration and the guidance that you would have us to hear today. Father, I ask that you touch my heart, my mind, and my mouth, that I would be able to bring your word to your people today, Father. Um, and understand, I don't look at this great responsibility as a light thing. I appreciate you for what you're doing, and not only in my life, but in the lives of our people. And Father, I just ask you today that you continue to guide us, lead us, direct us in all things, Father. We'll be careful, extra careful, to give you all the praise and all the glory for all the wonderful things that you do and will do. Father, all the wonderful things that you've done. And we give you all the praise and all the glory in the name of your precious son, Yahushua. Amen. All right. So we're starting again. We're in chapter 16 of Numbers. It's Korah. All right. So a lot of people like to know names. Names are always fun. You know what I mean? And sometimes they give us a little bit of extra insight into what's going on in the story. Like the little girl said last night, the little girls that show up, they were like thinking that they were going to get to hear preaching. And it was like, y'all are here. It's after 9:00, you know. And one little girl said, did we miss the story? Did we miss the story? And so like that's what Dad was like. We were talking about the story. But anyway, it's just worthy. It's kind of neat. Korah, it means ice, or something that surrounds or constricts. And his reasoning was doing that. It was tying and constricting these people, you know what I mean? And it was putting them in a bind. Dathan, Dathan is, that's a Chaldean name, of course. So it's going to say in your Strong's, it's going to say of unused origin, you know what I mean? But it actually means like a lawyer or somebody who spins words to get what they want. And then Avram means or Abiram, it means like a lifted up elder. So all of these guys, here they are, they're kind of spinning things and turning things at the way that they want to. Can you read verses 1 and 2 for me, please?
And Korah, son of Yitzhar, son of Kehath, son of Levi, took both Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, son of Reuben. And they rose up before Moshe with some of the children of Israel, 250 leaders, and the congregation called ones of the meeting, men of name.
So the thing that's kind of weird starting right out of the gate is Korah is a Levite. Okay, he's actually of the tribe. He belongs to Kohath, right? Which are the guys who are toting the furniture around, right? So you'd think that so you'd think that he would be happy with this. You know what I'm saying? Well, he's not. And then he's like, well, then he goes and he gets a bunch of other guys, and he enlists Dathan and Abiram, who are actually Reubenites. They're not Levites at all. So honestly, they don't even have a dog in this fight because they're that's not their place. And here we have a classic case, and unfortunately, this is a big part of the human condition. We have a classic case of people wanting something that isn't theirs. I had a guy at my work not too long ago called me and chewed me out because I got something that he didn't get, and he couldn't understand why. He called me at home over the weekend, right? Well, you'd have to know the guy. But anyway, he was wanting to know, because he needs to lose some weight. He's wanting to know, how have I lost the weight I've lost? And I told him, he said, well, so-and-so said you have this medication. I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, I went to the doctor and they said I could have it, but then the insurance wouldn't give it to me. They denied it. I said, okay. So then he tells me, he says, well, how come you can get it and I can't? I said, are you a diabetic? He said, no. I said, I am. And at the core, this is a diabetes medicine. So that's why I can get it and you can't. Yeah, but people always want what they can't get. You know what I mean? And it's terrible. This priesthood, we know that the priesthood was for Levi. But there always seems to be some sort of conspiracy in the wings, especially when we're talking about the children of Israel. There always seems to be something brewing because nobody's ever satisfied with it. You know what I'm saying? They never seemed, they grumble, they gripe, they complain. He fed them with food that only angels got to eat, and it wasn't good enough. They had to have quail, or they had to have this, or they had to have that. And it's always been said, you can take the Israelite out of Egypt, but you can't get the Egypt out of the Israelite. You know what I mean? It was all, oh, we remember back in the day when we were sitting by the flesh pots and da-da-da. Let me tell you what, you're looking through rose-colored glasses. It's never, where you came from is never as good as where you're going to. Okay? We need to remember that. The places that he brought us from are nowhere, not even to be compared, the scriptures say, okay? Not even to be compared with where he's taking us to. All right? We're going to a city not built with hands. We're going to a place that eye has not seen and ear has not heard. Take a look at the book of Revelations. It tells you some of the things that it talks about. Can you imagine what that's going to look like? It's going to be incredible. I mean, we can't even describe it. And you want to trade that for what is in the past? We need some spiritual LASIK is what we need. We need to be able to see correctly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we do. I think that's a pretty good thing. We need some spiritual LASIK. We need to be looking through the eyes of the Ruach, not through the eyes of flesh, not through the eyes of man. Because we're always going to want what we used to have. Oh, I remember when it was like this. Well, you know what? Like I said, nostalgia will blind you. Case in point, my wife went back to California a few years ago, got stuck there for longer than she wanted to be. But one thing she did tell me, she said, I'm going to In-N-Out and I'm gonna get me a double-double. I said, okay, baby, go ahead. You enjoy yourself. Yeah, she kept talking about how she was gonna go get that double-double. And then I talked to her later on in the day and I said, well, how was your double-double? She said, you know what? She said, just a hamburger. She said, I think I like Five Guys better. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, though. Nostalgia always makes us think that what we had in the past was better. But it isn't. There's a reason why we've moved on from there. Right? And the place that we were, like I said, is nowhere near as good as the place that we're headed to. All right? We need to grab a hold of that. Because it's awfully easy to look in the rearview mirror. But remember what happened when Lot's wife turned around? Stopped her immediately, right? And looking back at the past is going to do that to us as well. It will stop our forward movement. It will stop our growth. It will stop our progression. So when we cut ties with the past, when we cut ties with who we used to be, we don't need to go back and try to put Band-Aids on them and get those ties back. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing that we don't need to do, because I promise you, it's never as good as you imagine it being, or as you remember it being. We call the Mandela effect, right? We remember things that aren't necessarily true, but that's how we remember them. And, the thing is, like I said, all I know is that, I wouldn't take any amount of money or fame or notoriety or whatever. I wouldn't take any amount of that for the truth that we have been given freely, right? The truth that we've been given freely in this word, and the understanding that we have, I used to think that the desire I had for things back in the past was it was all consuming, all encompassing. But like I said, when I look at this and I think, wow, what if I had gotten this 30, 40 years ago? Where would I be now? Where would my understanding be now? But it wasn't time, right? He makes all things beautiful in his time. It wasn't time. And there's a lot of things that happened to us younger, when we were younger, earlier, there's a lot of things that have happened to us that we don't understand. And we don't know. And we question that. Why? Like a bunch of little kids. Why? Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. You why me one more time. Yeah. But the point is, things happen. Everything happens for a reason. And we don't know what steps needed to be taken to get us to this point. Okay? And it's not for us to question. It's for us to accept it and say, okay, I don't get it now. But one day, I promise you, when we're standing there in his presence, right, we're going to be able to say, hey, how come this happened? Why did I have to go here? What was the reason? And it will every bit of it will make sense then. You know what I'm saying? But the point is, we got to remember where he brought us from. Look at where we're going to, and not let that gratitude dry up. Yes, sir. 1 Corinthians 13, 11, and 12. I got to look through here and make sure you ain't stepping on my... No.
1 Corinthians 13, 11, and 12. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I know even as I am also known.
See, that's the thing. Right now, we're looking through a glass darkly or dimly, as some, we can't see through it. It's like a how like a bathroom window is frosted over, or a shower door, or whatever. We see in part, and we understand some of it. But when we get there, it's all going to become clear, every bit of it. And the thing is, it's like that old song used to say. It's popped into my head talking about this. But there was an old song that we used to sing years ago that said, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. But see what I'm saying? That's how things work here. But you see, that's what I'm saying. What I have now, I thought I had some back then, but what I have now, that way pales in comparison. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't take anything for what we have now. Nothing, there's nothing to compare it to. That's it. You know what I mean? Just like Rebbe talked about, a couple of months ago, it's priceless. There's you know what I mean? It's that pearl of great price. You know what I mean? And we sold out, sold everything to get to this place. And the thing is, when you sell out, you ain't got nothing to go back to. So you just got to keep walking. Like Dad said, when go ahead and take a dive, because once your feet leave the ground, there ain't no turning back. It's not like Hitchhiker's Guide, throwing yourself at the ground and missing. That's how you learn how to fly, is you throw yourself at the ground and you just miss. But that's the point. Let's remember that, and let's go ahead and read verse 3, please. This is going to tie into what we were just talking.
And they assembled against Moshe and against Aharon and said to them, enough of you, for all the congregation is holy, all of them, and Yahweh is in their midst. Why then do you lift yourselves above the assembly of Yahweh?
So see, what they're saying here is you making yourself better than everybody else. And Moshe is the most humble man. Scripture say he was the most humble man. You know what I mean? And they're over here and they're railing against Aaron and Moses, saying, well, we can do this, we can do that. Well, let me tell you what everybody is needful. We got to have every part of the body for it to be whole, right? So just like we talked about last night, there's some people that are a doorkeeper. There's some people that are a custodian. There are some people that are a cook or a cleaner or a what. But every part of the body is needful, right? Let's go to Ephesians 4:11 and 12, please.
Ephesians 4:11 and 12. And he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and some teachers for the perfecting of the saint and for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Messiah.
So see, said that he gave some apostles and some prophets and some preachers and some teachers. And so all of these people do different things. But it says that every one of them is needful for what? For the perfecting of the saints and for the building of the body of Moshiach. So it doesn't matter what your title is or your tag or what, it doesn't matter what talent you're given. What matters is that you use it, right? And don't be looking at someone else's gift and getting rocks in your jaws about it. You know what I'm saying? That person's gift is that person's gift. Let them operate in it. Your gift is yours. Operate in that, because that's truly where you're going to get blessed at. If you're operating in the place that he puts you in, that is where your blessings will come from. And regardless of whether you think it's prestigious enough or whatever, a lot of people look at that. How many people, like I said, and I'm not, but how many people do we know, have we met, that how many people would give their eye teeth to be sitting behind this desk right here doing what I'm doing right now? And I'm only doing it because I was asked to. You know what I'm saying? And I feel, honestly, y'all, I promise you, I feel woefully unprepared to come behind Rabbi and try to bring a message to you know what I mean? I do. Every week I feel woefully unprepared to be up here. You know, but my dad, my rabbi, my teacher, my leader, he has faith in me that I'm not going to lead y'all astray. So I operate in that. And I take what I'm feeling and I push that in the back. And I say, well, the bad brain, right? My brain tells me you ain't got no reason to be up there. But Rebbe feels differently. So what do? I operate where you've put me at. Right? Y'all know I'm way more comfortable on the other side of the wall over here talking about letters and punctuation marks and vowel points. I'm way more comfortable doing that. But this is where I'm at. So I do what? I occupy. Right? I tarry here and do the job I was given. And I do it with a joyful heart, not grumbling and griping and complaining, but I do where I've been put. But that's the thing. We got to know everybody, every part of the body is needful. It's useful in its proper place. Right? Let's go to 2 Corinthians 10 and 12, please.
2 Corinthians 10, verse 12. For we dare not make ourselves of the number or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves, but they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise.
See, so if I take myself and I look at anybody else's gift and I get upset because, well, he didn't give me that. How come I can't go? How come I can't do that? I can do that just as good as them. The Bible says that if I compare myself with somebody else like that, then I'm not wise. Because that's not where he operated me to work at. Do you see what I'm saying? When we try to operate in a place that we haven't been appointed, I'm not talking about self-appointment, right? He don't do things that way. But when we try to operate in a place that we have not been appointed to, here's what's going to happen. We're going to make a big mess out of it. That's exactly what we're going to make a mess out of. Okay? And then guess what you're going to get? You're going to get 2 whippings. You're going to get 2 of them. One's bad enough. When the Father switches your leg, that's bad enough. But now you're going to get 2 of them. One, because you ain't where he put you at. Right? And 2, because you trying to do something that you wasn't appointed to. Right? You're going to get 1 because you're not doing your job, and you're going to get the second one for being where you don't belong. And that's the thing. You go to work, and your job is this. You run this machine, or you drive this forklift, or you do whatever. What if the boss man comes in and he sees you in there tooling around in the maintenance shop and you're in there fiddling with you ain't got no training? What's going to happen? Could be looking at some OSHA types, you know what I'm saying? Could be looking at some O'Keefe and Merritt or some Hewlett Winstead. You could be looking at a funeral home as well, right? So work in the place that you've been trained for, that you've been prepared for. Operate in that. And that's where you're going to get your blessing. That's where you're going to find it at. Because you're in the Father's will then when you're operating in the place he put you in. Don't try to be like Korah and Dathan and all them guys. They thought, oh, man, we could do this. We could do your job better than you can do it. I don't think so. Let's say, Rebbe, I tell you no. You know, he created them for a purpose. Right? We've all been created for a purpose. And I don't like getting a whooping. I really don't. I ain't never liked getting a whooping. So I tell you, I don't like it. So it's better just to do the right thing from the get-go, right? It's better to obey than to have to bring a sacrifice because you didn't do what you was told to do. Let's ask old Saul about that. Certainly easier, right? I'm not one of those ones that says it's better. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. That is a strictly secular humanist viewpoint. You know what I'm saying? Just do the right thing in the first place. Be in the right place, and let's operate that way. Verses 4 and 5, please.
And when Moshe heard, he fell on his face, and he spoke to Korah and to all his company, saying, tomorrow morning Yahweh shall make known who is his and who is Kadosh, and come near to him, and let him bring near to him the one whom he chooses.
All right. So it says here in verse 4, it says that when Moses heard this, he did what? He fell on his face. Okay. So he humbled himself. I bet he wanted to let them bubbles out. You know what I mean? He probably got pretty MAD. But he humbled himself. He said, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's let Yahweh be the judge, right? Let's let him be the judge of this whole thing. Go to 1 Peter 2 and 23.
First Peter 2, 23. And 23. Who, when he was reviled not again. And when he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to him that judges righteously.
So our role model, our Messiah, our Savior, our leader, our high priest, said that when he was reviled, did he pop back off on him? No. Said that he did not revile again, right? But it says that he did what? That he left it up to him who judges righteously. And that's what we have to do. Okay? When somebody comes against you and they just blah, 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 yes, by all means, if they physically attack you, you fight back. But if they're bringing an accusation that you know isn't true, let it be. All right? Let it be. Let's go to Romans 12, 18 through 21.
Romans 12, 18 through 21. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith Yahweh. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good.
Overcome evil with good. All right? So if they come at you, treat them good. Because I guarantee you, it burn them up. It burn them up every time. People hate it when you don't give them back what they're giving you. They hate that. All right? They hate it. So what better way to get over on that person than to act completely opposite of steal their joy, steal their thunder from them? That's right. You ain't getting in trouble for it either. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. We're always going to have people that are just going to, and y'all have been to Walmart. They'll get you for no reason. They'll just come out of the woodwork. You never know. They'll just jump on you. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. I don't know not one of us in this building or out there in the Zoom room. I don't know any of us that can afford to let the enemy steal their joy. The scripture said that the joy of Yahweh is my strength. And if I allow them to take that away from me, then I become weak. I become withdrawn. I become, you know what I mean? We can't allow people to steal that from us. Scripture said that they're of their father, the devil, right? And what did the devil? He come not but to kill and to steal and destroy, right? And they want to steal your joy. They want to steal that from you because they're miserable. Misery loves company. Okay? And they want to steal you. But you know what? When you don't let them do it, whoo, they get hot. But I love that. I love that. I do. That makes me happy. I like that. Ain't nothing more I like better than when they mad at me just to smile at them and tell them, hey, you know what? I love you. Oh, they get hot. I do. I love that stuff. All right. But remember, we need to repay their wickedness with kindness. All right. And then what? Even though this flesh man is saying, whoo, I'd like to knock your block off right now. All right. The flesh man's thinking that, right? Little Willie's telling me, just poke him right quick. But that's not what we're supposed to do. We repay their wickedness with kindness, right? And then we let the Father sort them out. Because we know if he does it, it's going to be done the right way. And it's going to be done, he's going to let the punishment fit the crime, right? Because I may do something a little, you know what I mean? I may get a little too crazy on them. You know, I am a Wilson. I may just go slap nuts. You never know. But the point is, it's not up to me to decide. Just like what Korah did, they come in and bringing all this crazy mess and talking all this stuff that's not even true. You guys set yourself up above everybody else. No, y'all will put them there. Okay? Y'all will put them there. That's what I told him. You Levites, you put too much on yourselves. Because we got to remember, two types of Levites, right? This is something that you don't catch if you don't study the word. Two types of Levites. You had the Levites that took care of the outside and the building and, you know, kind of go-betweens and took care of the grounds and stuff. And then you had the Levites that operated inside the tabernacle. They had to be out of Aaron's lineage. You see what I'm saying? So just because they're Levites don't mean that they was on the same level. Okay? That's something that when we read it and you're like, well, hold up. Moses is a Levite too. But he's telling them, you Levites, that gets confusing. But the point is, he's on a different level than they are. All right? So like I said, let's overcome evil with good. And let's let the Father take care. Nothing makes a person angrier when they're mad at you than when you tell them, you know what? I love you. I'm going to pray for you. And you go on your way. Ooh, it makes them angry. Verses 6 and 7, please.
Do this, take fire holders, Korah, and all your company, and put fire in them, and put incense in them before Yahweh tomorrow. And it shall be that the one whom Yahweh chooses is the Kadosh or Holy One. Enough of you sons of Levi.
Okay, so Moses is, it's enough. I've heard enough from you sons of Levi. Well, he's a son of Levi too, when you really get down to it. But like I said, they got different jobs, right? They got different jobs. So Moses tells them, take your censers, take your incense holders, put some fire in them. We're going to put some, and we're going to see. And I wrote this down in here because it made me laugh. This is truly a trial by fire, right? And we got to remember, just like what I was talking about just a little bit ago, sometimes we take too much on ourselves. Okay? Because we think that we're much more than what we are. And self-confidence is one thing. There's nothing wrong with self-confidence. That's a good thing. Confidence is a great thing. But there's a big difference between self-confidence and self-delusion. Amen? There's a big difference between those two. All right? Self-delusion is a different thing altogether. All right? Our goal should not be to stroke our ego. Our goal should be to please the Father and operate where he wants us, not try to satisfy the uh, again, to satisfy our egos by thinking that we're way more than what we are. We have to take things into perspective, right? We got to look at ourselves and say, hey, there's only so much I can do. But what I can do, I'm going to do the best that I can do with it. Right? There's only so much I can do at my plant to try and get these guys to listen to our policies and procedures. There's only so much I can do. Right? Then I got to learn how to kind of delegate and know when, all right, they're not going to listen to me, so I need to kind of take this a little bit higher. The other day we had a situation. I tried to call a meeting. Every one of them ignored me. They did. I sent a meeting in, you know what I mean? I'm like, look, this is a serious thing. We got to talk about this. Every one of them ignored me, went on about their own business. So later on that afternoon, my corporate boss says, hey, what'd you find out in the meeting? I said, nothing. She said, what do you mean? I said, nobody answered it. Everybody ignored it. They all went around doing their own thing. She said, well, didn't you tell them it was important? I'm like, yeah. I said, but they didn't listen to me. I said, so I tell you what, I said, if you want information, I said, you send the next email because they'll listen to you. They're not listening to me. And she did. And boy, they was Johnny on the spot to get back on this, our investigation, our fact finding mission. But you see what I'm saying? You can only do so much. But Dad, you know what? I didn't take it personal. I didn't. I said, I did what I could. They don't want to listen to it. So be it. So I go get a bigger bat. I go get a bigger hammer. You know what I'm saying? And say, hey, you take care of this because they ain't listening to me. So a lot of times it's all about knowing where our limits at. You know what I mean? Let me ask you this. Did Yahushua walk around the streets of Jerusalem? I am the great son of Yahweh. I am Yahushua. I am the great this. Did he do that? No. No, he did not. Let's go to Philippians 2, verses 5 through 9. Scripture said that he was lowly, right? He took the low road.
Philippians 2, 5 through 9. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Messiah Yahushua, who being in the form of Elohim, thought it not robbery to be equal with Elohim, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in the fashion of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even the death of the stake.
So here's our example, right? The son of the living El. And he came down here and went through all this mess. He sure took a pay cut. Like I said, he definitely did. Right? So he come down here and he had it, I mean, all the miracles and all this and all that. And I mean, he sure could have said, why aren't y'all listening to me? Because I'm the son of Elohim. Why aren't y'all listening? And what I thought was funny is like when they were questioning him and stuff. You know what I mean? And they said, are you the son of Elohim? And what'd he say? You said it. You know what I mean? But he didn't say it. But he's like, that's what you said it. You know? But he didn't walk around, I'm doing miracles. I'm the son of the living El, blah, blah. He didn't do all that. Right? It says that he humbled himself. But he had to in order to be our sacrifice, in order to be our, in order to pave the way for us to get back to the Father, right? But let's go to John 8 and 29 and see why he did it and what is our pattern? What's our example? What are we supposed to do? All right, John 8 and 29.
Okay, John 8 and 29. And he that sent me is with me. The Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him.
So see, here's the thing. He was lowly and humble. And he took on this form. Scriptures say for the crowning of death, right? Why? Because he said, I only do them things that please my Father. And that's what was important to him. And that's the same with us. Ain't none of us need to get the big head, right? If your head get too big, you can't get your head covered on. He'll pop it with that big hat. He does. Ribbon poking. He got a big hat pin, and he will pop your bubble. I promise. He'll bust your balloon, okay? But that's the thing. We got to look at it as, does this please the Father? Because when we do that, then we can be like our example. And we learn why he done these things. Strictly to please the Father. And that should be our goal. That should be, why we're doing this whole thing. All right, verses 9 and 10.
Is it little to you that the Elohim of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to perform the service of the Mishkan of Yahweh, and to stand before the congregation to serve them? That he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, whom you with you. Yet you seek the kahuna, or the priesthood as well.
Okay. So he's saying, look, you guys have a job, but now you trying to take mine? This is where I was appointed, not you. Right? And it don't make me no better than you or any of this. This is just where I'm at. And this is where I have to operate in. So that's the thing we need to remember. Don't get jealous over somebody else. Don't get the envy. Don't get the, don't let the green-eyed monster get to you, okay? Stay in your lane. Worry about what the Father has you doing.
They wanted to be, instead of just being thankful to have a place in there and be part of the Levites, they wanted the priesthood.
Yeah. I mean, here they are.
Not theirs.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? They're Levites, but they're, and they're not working in the tabernacle. But that wasn't their place. But that's what they wanted. We want the notoriety. Let me tell you what, and Dad, Mama tell you, it ain't all sunshine and roses. When you got people calling you 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and cussing you out and cuss you for a dog, and you ain't done nothing to them but try to love them and help them. How many times does that happen? More than we want to talk about. But the point, like I said, don't think it's everything it's all cracked up to be, So, like I said, wherever you're at, that's where the Father wants you. So operate there. Work there. Become the best that you can be there. Get grown, get mature, get perfect there. That's what we need to do. Verse 11, please.
Therefore, you and all your company are assembled against Yahweh and Aharon. What is he that you grumble against him?
So I'm going to tell you this right now. When we murmur and complain, we know that lights the Father's fire, right? He don't like that. But when we murmur and complain, especially against his good headship, the leaders that he puts over us, when we murmur and complain about that, we're not really speaking about those leaders. What we're really doing is we're talking against him. Exactly. That's right. Rebbe said that again, that shows that it isn't personal. Let's go to 1 Samuel 8 and 7. Here's a perfect example. Right? We talk about it. It ain't personal. Right? It ain't personal.
1 Samuel 8 and 7. And Yahweh said to Samuel, hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them.
So that's what the Father told Samuel. He said, when they go to talking and they go to griping and complaining, they're not fussing about you. They're fussing against me. And they may be directing it at you, but it ain't about you. Right? They're mad with me. Let's go to 1 Chronicles 16 and 22.
1 Chronicles 16, verse 22. Saying, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm.
Okay, so here's the thing. When we go to grumbling about his good headship, guess what we're doing? We're touching his anointed, and we're harming his prophets, and we're doing the things that he said don't do. Right? If anybody had a reason, let's take a look at David. If anybody had a reason, Saul tried to kill him how many times? And then he catches up with him in a cave and he's passed out. And all of David's men are like, just take him out. You the king anyway, take him out. But what did David say? Scripture say he was a man after Yahweh's own heart, right? What did he say? He said, I'll not touch his anointing. Right? I'll not. I could have. That's why he cut his little piece off of his garment and took his water jug. And then told Saul later, I could have taken you out, but I didn't. And then old Saul come back, oh, I promise you, I'm not going to try to do anything anymore. Lying. All right? But that's the thing. When you put your mouth on Rabbi or on Rebbitzin or on who, you ain't putting it on them. You really putting it on the Father. You need to be careful what you say. Because I promise you, he don't take that kind of stuff lightly. There ain't nobody in this building, ain't nobody here that wants to cause anybody any harm. We only have your best interest at heart and want to see you grow and help you and support you when you need us. That's what we say. Our phones ring 24 hours a day, y'all. We can't make ourselves much more available. But we're here for you. And I don't care how dark it gets. There's always a light that cuts through the darkness. So if you need it, call, reach out. You know, you can't walk this thing on your own sometimes. Sometimes you got to talk to somebody. So before it gets to that place, you know, Scripture tells us that we got to speak the things that, you know, I mean, when we need something, we need to tell him, I need this. I need, you know what I mean? This is where I'm at and I have a need. And true, Scripture say he knows what you have need of before you even say it. But the point is, you got to get it out there. You got to get it in the atmosphere. Right? And sometimes you just need to vent. That's okay. We can listen. You know, got to get that pressure off. You know what I'm saying? Been there myself. I know how it is. You know? So that's the thing. When we go to putting our mouths on our leadership, we're not really talking about that. We're actually grumbling against the Father. And he ain't too keen on that. He don't like that. Verses 12 through 14, it says where, you know, he called them and said, hey, come up here. And they're like, we ain't doing it. You know, and they're just more griping and complaining, more of their own delusion. You know, and what's it? It's simply driven by envy and jealousy. That's it. They're envious and they're jealous because they think that he's getting something that they ain't. Let me ask you this though: was it just the priesthood that was fed from the things of the tabernacle? Was it just the priesthood that received the blessings that were tied to? No, it was the entire tribe. Was it just the priesthood that was redeemed and separated unto Yahweh? Was it just the priest? No, it wasn't. It was the entire tribe. They all belonged to him. So them getting jealous and silly about all this kind of, it was misplaced. No reason for it. No reason for them to be jealous of anything, because they were joint heirs and partakers with with all the blessings that Levi had come that came Levi's way. Right? Didn't matter if you was just carrying a tent peg. Well, you had to have every piece of it to make it work, right? For it to be complete, you had to have every piece of it. So ain't no reason to be envious or jealous. All right. Let's read 16 through 21 real quick.
Then Moshe said to Korah, tomorrow you and all your company shall be there before Yahweh, you and they and Aaron, and take each one his fire holder, and you shall put incense in it, and let each one bring his fire holder before Yahweh, 250 fire holders, and you and Aharon, each one with his fire holder. So each one took his fire holder and put fire in it and laid incense on it and stood at the door of the tent of appointment with Moshe and Aharon. And Korah assembled all the congregation against them at the door of the tent of appointment. Then the esteem of Yahweh appeared to all the congregation. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, separate yourselves from the midst of this congregation and let me consume them in a moment.
So let me tell you something. Scriptures tell us that the actions of one can taint the many. You always heard one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, right? So there was and I'm good at this because I bring up things that we've been taught over the years, because they still are just as valid today as they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. You know? But here's the thing. Always remember, the weaker is going to always bring down the strong. Right? You've always heard a chain, you know, I mean, the weakest link is what breaks the chain, right? And I'm not saying it exactly right, but that's my point. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. That's how it goes. Okay. But that's the case. All right. The weaker brings down the strong. And their offering is an abomination to him, because it's not going to be done according to the way he wants it. It's going to be done according to the way that they want it. Offer it to your good. See if he be pleased with you. All right. He doesn't want the things that we think are fitting. He wants the things that he wants. And it's up to us to match up with him, not for him to match up with us. Does that make sense to y'all? Okay. And then in verse 21, what does he say? He says, separate yourselves from amongst this congregation, because I'm fixing to consume them in a moment. Right? Sounds like what he told us later on in Revelation. Said, come out from among them and be separate, and touch not the unclean thing. And then what? Then I'll receive you. So separate yourself from that. Right? Separate yourself from that. Verse 22 says, and they fell on their faces and said, O Elohim, the El of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will you be wroth with all the congregation? Well, let me tell you something. One man did sin. Right? Let's go to Romans 5 and 12.
Romans 5, verse 12. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned.
So, Adam messed up, right? And through his actions or inaction, as the case may be, death entered into the world because of the sin, right? But the good news is that there is a second Adam. And through his actions, eternal life was given. So it works both ways. So that's the pattern, right? When we bring sin in, it brings nothing but decay and death. So, like I said, it's not a place for us to be. Let's look at verses 24 through 26.
Speak to the congregation, saying, move away from around the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. So Moshe rose up and went to Dathan and Abiram and the elders of Israel following them. And he spoke to the congregation, saying, please turn away from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch whatever belongs to them, lest you be consumed in all their
So what do you
sins.
tell them? Touch not the unclean thing, right? There's a second witness. He said, if you don't touch the unclean thing, I will receive you. Right? That means physically don't touch it. And that means spiritually don't touch it either. Okay? Here's the thing. People always worry because he always telling people, separate yourselves. Separate yourselves. Come out from amongst them and be ye separate, that you be not partakers of her sin. For they've reached to the heavens. All right? But that's what he's saying. Come out from among them. Be separate. Separation is holiness. Okay? Let's get it through our thick skulls. It's not walking around, oh, I'm so holy. I pray 28 hours a day. I only ever focus on the cross and blah, blah, blah. That's not what holiness is. For real, right? That's not holiness, okay? Holiness is separation. That's what the word kadosh, kadash, to set apart, to isolate, right? This means, I'll tell y'all what it means. What does it mean? I'm going to tell you. This means not going where we used to go. Not exposing ourselves to those people that we used to spend time with. Not partaking of the things that may lead us back to where he has brought us from. Don't waller back in the pig pen. Right? And what it said? The true proverb, the dog has returned to its vomit, and the sow, right, to her wallowing in the mire. He brought you from that place. Don't go back. It's not for you to go back. Yes, we have friends and family that we love and people that we know, and you want them to get this thing. But maybe you're not the one they're going to get it from. I can go to my brother all day long. He ain't hearing nothing from me because we're too familiar. We're too close, right? I've often heard Rebbe pray, Father, you send me to somebody's family and you send someone to mine. Because they ain't going to listen to me. I'll be 53 years old in September. And my mama still thinks I'm 3. Bless your heart, I love you to death, but it's true. And it's hard for us. It's hard for us. We're always going to see our kids as our kids. Chris is 31 years old. And he's still my little boy that needs me to help him do stuff, you know what I mean? And I try to give him as much space as I can. I ain't trying to embarrass you, son. I'm just using you for example. But I try to give him as much space as I can. But regardless how old he gets, I'm still his daddy. And he's still my son. And I will still be worried and concerned for him. And I will still think about him when he ain't home. I know he's working until 10 o'clock and he ain't home by 10:30. And how many times do I stay up and wait for you to get home? I do. Not because I don't trust him, but I don't trust anybody else. I just want to know he's all right. This is why Sister Shelby, this is why I send you messages during the week. I just want you to know that I think about you. You know what I'm saying? This is the reason why, because everybody in this building, everybody in the Zoom room has a very, very special place in my heart. And I want to make sure that you're doing okay. I want to make sure that you're still walking. I want to make sure that you're not suffering with something that I may be able to help you with. I want you to know that I love you. And I don't use that word lightly. Maybe I love a little too much, but that's just the person I am. And the point is, I don't want to go back to where I came from. And I don't want any of you to do the same thing either. We all have different stories. We all have different places that he's brought us from. All I know is mine. And it wasn't pretty. I promise you. You may not think it, but I got some stories that turn your hair white. I promise you I do. Mine turned white because I got all this red in it. But the point is, I got some pretty scary stories that I could tell. I don't ever want to go back there again. And with Yahweh's help, I won't. But I got to remember, I can't do it on my own. I got to lean on my daddy and say, Father, I'm struggling today. I need some help. Can't do it on my own. I got to remember who I am, right? Make sure that I don't put too much on myself. So I don't go back to the places I used to go. And I've lost a lot of friends over the years simply because I needed to separate myself. Because if I didn't, I'll be right back in the pig pen again. And that's not a good place for anybody to be. And I remember all too clearly where he brought me from. So that's the thing. Let's not go back there again. Learn to lean on each other. Go to 28 through 33, please.
And Moshe said, by this you know that Yahweh has sent me to do all these works, not because of mine own heart. If these men die as all men do, or if they are visited as all men are visited, then Yahweh has not sent me. But if Yahweh creates what is unheard of, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you shall know that these men have scorned Yahweh. And it shall come to be, as he ended speaking, that all these words, that the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, and all the men of Korah and all their goods.
So, let's go back to talking about something we talked about a couple weeks ago. Because they failed to take care of it privately, the Father made sure that it was public. Yeah, thousands of years ago, we're still talking about it. This is a new thing. If they die the death of all men, if he visits them as is natural, but I guarantee you the earth's splitting open and all these tents and these elders and all these guys, that ain't a natural thing. But because they wouldn't take care of it privately, Father said, well, we're going to have to take care of it publicly. And then it says in the next verse that all the camp was running all over the place. Freaking out. Could have been a whole lot different if they had taken care of it when the pine tree was this big versus when it was this big around. You know what I'm saying? Could have been a whole lot different. Let's see, 35 through 40. Says, then there came out a fire from Yahweh, and it consumed the 250 men that offered incense. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses, speak unto Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, that he take up the censers out of the burning and scatter the fire, for they are hallowed. And the censers of these sinners against their own souls, let them make broad plates for a covering before Yahweh. Therefore they are hallowed, and they shall be a sign unto the children of Israel. And Eleazar the priest took the brazen censers wherewith they were burnt what they burnt had offered, and they made broad plates for the covering of the altar to be a memorial. There's that word again, a memorial, right? Did he take these plates and hide them under a tarp somewhere? No. It says here that they became a memorial unto the children of Israel, that no stranger, which is not of the seed of Aaron, come near to offer incense before Yahweh, that he be not as Korah and his company, as Yahweh said to him by the hand of Moses. Okay, so that's the thing. By the time in Yahushua's day, there was all kind of people working in the. That's how you knew that he wasn't there anymore, right? Because how many times does it say, no stranger is to work in my service? Only those of the tribe of Levi. They have a place. Okay? But here again, he's putting it out there. You see these 250 plates that have been nailed to this altar here? This should serve as a reminder to you, I ain't playing games with you. Right? I'm going to have serve me who I want to have serve me. Right? And that's how this is going to go. Verse 41, they start complaining again. I mean, just right out. I mean, they're never happy with nothing. You know? But the thing is, they continually fail to see that their anger is misplaced. They can gripe at Moses and Aaron and them all they want to, and it ain't going to change nothing. You know, Father's made up his, kind of like what Pilate said, what I've written, right? Well, they blamed everything on Moses. You know what I'm saying? You know, yeah, I don't think, I don't recall him ever being able to make the ground open up and swallow camps and folks and stuff like that. But like I said, they go to complaining again. Let's read verses 44 through 48.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, arise from the midst of this congregation and let me consume them in a moment. And they fell on their faces. So Moshe said to Aaron, take the fire holder, put fire in it from the altar, and lay incense on, and go, hurry to the congregation and make atonement for them. For wrath has gone out from Yahweh. The plague has begun. And Aaron took it as Moshe commanded, and ran into the midst of the assembly, and saw that the plague had begun among the people. And he laid on the incense and made atonement for the people, and stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped.
Let's go to James 5:16.
James 5:16. Confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much.
So my question is, how many times has the plague been stopped in our lives because of somebody else? Somebody caring enough. Somebody loving you enough to pray for you. You go to, brother, sister, I need help. I can't, my prayer's not even getting above this drop ceiling here. I need some help. The scriptures say that the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And it's speaking about man as a mankind, okay, a person, right? How many times has the prayer of somebody else been there and we didn't know it? All I can think about is all the mamas and grandmothers and that are praying for their children and they don't even have a clue. Yet they go on and live their lives, right? These folks, they go on and live their lives as if they're bulletproof, but they have no clue that it's somebody else in the wings that loves them enough to be praying for. I mean, here's the example. Moses told him, go get the thing, put some fire, put some incense on it, and get out there. And if somebody asks you to pray for them, not only do it, Vic, here's the thing. What is the pattern? What is the example? The scriptures say that Moses told Aaron, go get your fire censer, put your incense on it, right? And get out there. It doesn't say that he got out there when he had time. It says that he ran. Aaron ran to do it because the plague was loose in the camp. So the thing is, if somebody asks you to pray for them, don't put it off. Because 9 times out of 10, we're going to forget. We're going to get sidetracked. And we're going to forget to do it. How many? Let's be honest. We've all done it, right? Let's just be honest about it. We all grown folks. We've all done it, okay? But here's the thing. You never know if that prayer is going to be the one that helps that person make that breakthrough. You never know if that prayer is going to be the one that keeps them from getting in a car wreck that day or an accident on the job or what. You never know. So you know what? Best just to go ahead and get it. Get after it. You know, it ain't got to be nothing big, long, and flowery and all that kind of stuff. That's a very common misconception. We were always taught, oh, you got all these fancy words. The disciples said, how do we pray? And Yahushua said, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. These are it's a very simple thing, right? So if a person asks you, don't linger. Don't, you know what I mean? If you can drop what you're doing, drop what you're doing, right? The example is we run to help that person, not take our time and get to it when we feel like we have enough time to do it. That's true. That's true. And Dad just brought up the point, and this is part of where I was going, but he brought up the point. You know, Yahushua spoke against, because the Pharisees would get out there and they said they love the adoration of men, and they love to make long prayers and they wear the long tzitzit, and you know they out in the street and they love the adoration of men, and they say these big long flowery speeches and all this kind of stuff, and that ain't what it takes. That ain't it. You can pray from here all day long and it ain't gonna do you no good. But maybe a 30, 45, 1 minute prayer from here, that's going to get it. That's going to get it. You know, I think people ask us to pray for them. And in society and in our, you know, I mean, it's become so rote and it's just become such a routine thing. How many people, oh, I'm going to pray for you. It don't go no further than that. You know what I'm saying? Ma'am?
I think you should be very careful, though, who you ask to pray for you. Like I see people
Oh, no,
put on
no.
Facebook asking everybody to prayers, send prayers or light or this and that. I'm like, oh my goodness, you just don't want everybody praying for you.
No,
They
you're
may
absolutely
be praying something against you, you know?
No, you're right.
So you need to use discernment with that also. You go to the people you know you can trust and you know that they're praying correctly.
Right. Lisa. Well, and it is a good point. You know, you can't just ask anybody to pray for it. You know, the scriptures tell us that you know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And if you got a person out there that's living like the devil himself, you know, that's probably not the guy that you want praying for you. You know, you know what I'm saying? That's just probably not it. So, you know, again, let's use some discernment, right? We talked about that last week, right? Let's use some discernment. Let's think about who we're talking to, who we're asking, right? We got to have that discernment in our everyday life. Because I promise you, not every person that's out there is out there for your good. Can I get an amen with that? Not every person that is out there for your good. Okay. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Scriptures say that when we have, well, I hope that you had a good oneg. I hope you had a good lunch. But scriptures say that when we've eaten and we're satisfied, that we are supposed to bless the Abba for the wonderful land that he's given us. And we'll go ahead and do that now.
Abihua, we thank you so much for the good food and the good land you've given to us, and for all your many blessings upon us. We thank you for what was a good 12 Parsha teaching, first half, and for what we know is going to be a good second half. B'Shem Yahushua HaMashiach, or in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah. Amen.
Amen. All right. So we're going to go ahead and pick up in chapter 17. It's kind of a short chapter. We'll go ahead and pick up there. So anyway, Rebbitzin, if you could, would you please read chapter or verse 2 of chapter 17?
Speak to the children of Israel and take from them a rod for each father's house. All their leaders according to their father's house, 12 rods, write each one's name on his rod.
All right. So the thing is, how many rods did they take? One for each tribe, right? So this lets us know there were 12 rods because there were 12 tribes. Just there was 12 tribes then, there's 12 tribes now, okay? They're just kind of hidden out there, but they still exist, all right? They did not become assimilated by other tribes or absorbed or any of that kind of stuff, okay? That's not the pattern that we see when we look at, when we look at the New Jerusalem. We have 12 gates, right? 12 doors, 12 foundations. There's, an angel for each one of them, right? So the thing is, let's remember, there's 12 rods, right? And for those who are into numbers, just remember that the number 12 speaks of government, right? Because here they are talking about who's going to lead this thing. So who's going to govern it, right? Who's going to be the one in charge of, who is Yahweh going to accept? Now, again, did they just put them all in a big bucket and drew one out at random? No. The Father, and we'll see it here, the Father actually does what? He's going to select somebody, right? He's going to select a tribe. So that right there shows us that he appoints those that he wants in a position, right? We don't vote. We don't, you know what I mean? It's by appointment only. That's how he does things. What if Yahushua and the disciples, that they was all there, and then they decided, they voted, the disciples devoted that Bartholomew would be a better Messiah or something, you know what I mean? That it wouldn't be right. It would be incorrect, right? The Father appoints and puts people where he wants them. And so, he does that based off of his own criteria. When we go to appointing ourselves, we have a mess on our hands. Let's read verses 3 through 7, please.
And write Aaron's name on the rod of Levi, for there is one rod for the head of each father's house. You shall then place them in the tent of appointment before the witness, where I meet with you. And it shall be that the rod of the man whom I choose buds, and I shall rid myself of the grumblings of the children of Israel, which they grumble against you. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, and all their leaders gave him a rod each, for each leader according to their father's house, 12 rods, and the rod of Aaron's was among their rods. So Moshe placed the rods before Yahweh in the tent of the witness.
So there's an interesting thing here. If we look at, it says that every man brought a rod, right? So when we think of a rod, it may mean different things to different people. You know what I'm saying? But the word that's actually used here is the word mateh, which means a rod or a staff, but it can also mean a tree branch. Okay. And it's kind of a symbolic thing, because when you look at for example, when you look at a family tree, what are the branches there? They're branches of the family reaching out, right? So you've got a branch here, a branch there, and when there's another person added in, right? Then there's a branch there. So you have this branch, all right? It's the word mate, and it means a branch or an offshoot, right? So it's very interesting that, and we're going to see it in verses 8 through 11. It's very interesting that he said the man whose rod buds, because you're not going to see that on a stick, right? You're not going to see it. It's going to be it would have to be a tree branch or something, something from that tree for it to bud. And of course, it's been cut off. But what we see here is what he's actually doing because of the words, right? He's literally selecting a family, a tribe. He's selecting them. It's not just like you put a bunch of popsicle sticks in or you draw straws or that's not what they're doing here. It's actually to show whose family, whose line, whose branch is the one that has been selected for this duty. Who is the one that Yahweh has appointed? All right. And it said that he's going to do it, that he did it to do what? To shut them up so that there wouldn't be any, because I promise you, the thing that that he does with this rod or this branch, there could be no explanation for it other than the hand of Yahweh, because you're dealing with a tree branch that's been cut off and is not attached to the tree anymore, right? So like I said, he's actually selecting a family based off a literal symbol of growth. Let's go to verses 8 through 11, please.
And it came to be on the next day that Moshe went into the tent of the witness and saw that the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had budded and brought forth buds and blossomed and bore ripe almonds. And Moshe brought out all the rods from before Yahweh to all the children of Israel. And they looked, and each man took his rod. And Yahweh said to Moshe, bring Aaron's rod back before the witness to keep as a sign against the rebels, so that you put an end to their grumblings against me, lest they die. And Moshe did as Yahweh had commanded him, so he did.
So not only did Yahweh make it blossom, but it blossomed, or not only did it make it bud, but it blossomed and it actually bore fruit and everything else. Okay. Any of you that have seen an almond tree, it don't just grow there's not just a little nut hanging off of it got to grow this big pod thing, and then the pod splits open and then the nut falls out, so it did all of this stuff, and these almonds that were grown, it's not even connected to the tree. There's flowers and fruit. So that's a whole nother thing, because that doesn't happen. The fruit comes from the blossom, but here it is. So Yahweh has not finished doing new things like what he did. He just made them open. The earth opened up and swallowed up the pig. Well, here's a tree limb that's been detached from the tree, but it's budding and blossoming and flowering and doing all this stuff. Okay. So here's the thing. Just as easily as he made that fruit grow on that branch, he can make that fruit grow in your life too. But the problem is we got to present ourselves and be willing to go through the process. Okay? We got to be willing to present ourselves and go through the process. It's not fun. It's not nice. It's not easy. Okay. I'm walking this thing 20 years now. It ain't easy. But I guarantee you, Just like I said at the very beginning, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's going to be worth it. It really, really will. Everything we've gone through, it'll be worth it. When he takes your old dry branch and brings those blossoms and them buds and that fruit, that's going to be something to see. And it says here that he took it and he put it out there and laid it out there as a reminder. Right? So they wouldn't have anything to argue about. Or they shouldn't anyway, but these are the children of Israel we're talking about. So there's always something to complain about, right? So anyway, like I said, and if your rod is blossoming and budding and bearing fruit, it's going to serve as a reminder to people. Here's the thing, though. Those people are going to be the first ones to say, hey, I remember when you used to do this or when you used to do that. All right? They're going to be the first ones, the very first ones. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be family. They're going to be quick to throw you under the bus. Okay? But let me tell you something. He can take anything and make it into something beautiful. Little is much when he's in control, right? So it doesn't matter what I used to be. All right? That's what we talk about, the ashes, right? The past experiences. Those are there. That's what I was just talking to Brother Alex about just a little bit ago. These things that we go through, these things that we live through, these things that we struggle with, but we continue to walk. These are how we help other people. Because I made it. You can make it too. All right? I've been there, brother. I've been there, sister. I know. I made it. And I'm nothing special. But I promise you, you can make it too. Right? This was my way. Your way may be a little different. But I promise you, where you are now is not always where you're going to be. Your branch may be dry today, but there's a rain coming, right? Remember the scriptures talk about the latter rain. There's a rain coming, and it's going to nourish that branch, and you're going to see it blossom and bud and bear fruit where nobody ever thought that you would. And that's going to serve as a reminder. I remember where I was. So do you. So let that be fertilized for that branch to cause it to blossom and bud. Right? But Paul said, I count it all as dung, right? So let it nourish your branch. Let it do the job that it does, that it's supposed to do. All right? We can't just, you've heard us say it 1,000 times, gratitude is the fastest drying substance known to mankind. All right? When we forget our gratitude, when we cease to be grateful for where he's brought us from, there is no hope for your branch. There's no blossoms coming. There's no buds coming, you know. But that's the thing. In order for it to produce fruit, it's got to grow. Okay? It's got to grow. So we use the past experiences. We use the things of the past, the trash we left behind. We use that to provide a foundation for this, for the new growth, right? Scriptures say that the old man passes away and there's a new man born, right? The new man is that blossoming, budding branch. That's the new man. When we get rid of the old stuff, that makes room for the new man to grow. You know, you used to talk about growing pains. It ain't easy. Sometimes we have to stop back. Well, hold up now. Why did I do that? You know, and you catch yourself. You know, you catch yourself. And but pretty soon it becomes second nature. I would never have thought years ago, you know, about, you know, the going to the buffet and eat the crab legs or what, you know what I mean? I'd never thought about that. It was just something, you know, hey, I like them, you know what I mean? But you learn and you say, hey, I don't do that anymore. And, you know, there have been times in the past where we messed up. We didn't know. We were at Dan's Diner one time. I don't know if you remember. We were at Dan's Diner and we were having lunch. And they asked me what sides I wanted. And I told them I wanted like mac and cheese and no, I wanted a salad. I had a salad and I wanted beans. I told them I wanted beans because I was thinking pinto beans, you know, or peas. I was thinking English peas. That's what it was. Little did I know that when they brought me in my bowl, it was field peas, Crowder peas. And I was like, well, that's fine. I like Crowder peas. Took me about 3 bites and I was like, and so I got a big old piece of fat back in there. I put that down and I said, you know, I didn't even think about that. But did I panic? No. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. I said, well, I know not to order those again. And I just looked up and I said, Father, I'm sorry. I didn't know. And I took that bowl and set it off to the side. And I didn't, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. They were good. But it wasn't what I was supposed to be eating. But I didn't think about it. You know what I'm saying? Hadn't thought about there being a piece of fat back in the Crowder peas. Yeah. Another thing. Why we don't go to Chinese food anymore, huh? We have to make it at home now. Because little did we think about it, there's oyster sauce in just about everything. We didn't think about that. We use a stir fry sauce at home that's made out of mushrooms. And that's clean. Oyster sauce is not. But about 90% of anything you eat at the Chinese restaurant is going to have oyster sauce. So, unfortunately, we don't get to go to oyster. But there is a good one here. But the thing is, we learn, right? And what do? Do we panic? No. We say, hey, we learn from it. We move on. It's opened our eyes a lot more to other things that we maybe didn't think about. So that's what I'm saying. Let's allow that stuff to nourish the branch, right? And let it grow. Did y'all know? Years ago, I used to be really into bonsai. There's a particular type that you can take a if you want to fill a bonsai tree out, or if you want to change it to a different type. I don't mean like a different species of tree, but if you want to change the pattern of it or the way it's growing, you can take it, bring it up, wire it back down, and put it under the soil and let the other end of it stick out. And what will happen is it will actually grow new shoots, which will come up out of the and will become more trees, right? And you can change it from a singular or a solitary tree to actually like a stand of trees and make like a panorama out of it. But it's all about nourishing it and letting it grow. And it ain't going to happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. But like I said, it's all going to be in his time. Verses 12 and 13, please.
And the children of Israel spoke to Moshe, saying, see, we shall die. We shall perish. We shall all perish. Anyone who comes near the Mishkan of Yahweh dies. Shall we be consumed to die?
So here's the problem. here's the biggest problem here. They're talking about, oh, we're going to die. Everybody who comes by the tabernacle or the Mishkan, anybody that comes by, he's killing everybody. Not him that's killing. Okay. What's one of the biggest things that they have a problem with is being able to see things for what they really are. Right? It's their actions that are bringing the punishment upon themselves, not the Father. The Father doesn't want to punish you, right? But it's their actions. It's their rebellion. It's their refusal to listen, all right? They will not accept responsibility for themselves. We are our own worst enemy. We talk about Hasatan. He is the accuser of the brethren. And he is the enemy. But you know what? With as much trouble as we get ourselves into, he's got a pretty easy job. You know what I'm saying? He's got a pretty easy job. My question is, how many times do we suffer needlessly because of what we tell ourselves? Listen to what I just said. Because of what we tell ourselves. The children of Israel running all over the place. Everybody who comes near the tabernacle's dying. Everybody's dying. Oh, he's going to kill all of us. There's a whole tribe that lives right around outside of the tabernacle. There's part of the tribe that works in the tabernacle every day. But they're telling themselves, right? He's going to kill us. We're dying. How many times do we suffer with that? How many times do we get the bad brain, right? How many times do we lie to ourselves and we believe it? Far too many times in my own life. I used to be real bad about this. I tell myself all kinds of stuff and just go off believing. You know? And the thing is, it wasn't a new thing for me, was it, Mom? I spent my whole life, toddler, worrying about everything. Is that not true? A toddler worrying about everything. That's not what the Father created me to do. Bless your heart, poor Mom was afraid I was going to die before the time I was 2 years old because I could never keep anything down. I was too nervous, constantly worried and agitated and anxious and fearful. That's not how a 2-year-old should be. But how many times, and regardless of what the scripture says or what what other people say, how many times do we believe the lies that we tell ourselves? Far too many. We tell ourselves, you ain't never going to be any good. You're a failure. You can't do that. That's what we tell ourselves. And I know of where I speak because up until just not too long ago, I was doing the same thing to myself every day. Every day. And no matter how many times he proved that that wasn't the case, I would rather believe what I was telling myself than what he was showing me. Can't. She's got it, but that's the one that's not. I don't know what's going on.
The biggest problem with that is that if you are telling yourself something, you are only one witness. And you're breaking the 2 or 3
and
witness
that's very
principle.
good. That's very good. Very good. You know, she's absolutely right. Devorah is absolutely right. If I'm telling myself that, that's only one witness. When we talk about the 2 or 3 witness principle, right? And, how much pain do we endure when we don't have to? He didn't create us for that. how much sickness does it bring on? How much hurt and pain and misery? And what we call it? Pain, misery, and woe. What is that? That's evil. Right? And it's all because we have our eyes. Guess where we've got our eyes? On the wrong thing. We've taken our eyes off the prize. Right? Like when Peter was walking on the water. Okay? And as long as he kept his eyes on Yahushua, he was golden. And he's just high stepping across that water. But then out of the corner of his eye, he sees some white caps and stuff. And he took his eyes off the Messiah. And he starts looking around. And then what started happening? Then he starts sinking, right? But what was his reply? Master, save me. When we get in that position, he's the only one that can. And we have to remember that. So like I said, we need to keep our eyes on him. Keep our eyes on the prize. And you know the bad thing about it? And like I said, I can talk about this because this is where I have been my whole life. The bad thing about it, it's not that we doubt him, because there's plenty of believers out there that have faith in him, right? People with strong faith and love the Messiah, love Yahushua with all their heart, but they just can't get past the hurdle that they're on. But here's the thing. Our issue is that we just can't see how good we really have it. You know? And there's no overnight fix. You know, this thing is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? But the thing is, if we keep our eyes on him, that is going to take us a long way. You know, just like what Shaul said, I press forward, right? We got to keep walking. You may just be crawling. You may be just inching along, but we got to keep walking. We can't give up. We have come too far to give up. Sister Shelby, we have come too far to give up. Right? Rebbe, we have come too far to give up. All right, Brother Tommy, we have come too far to give up. The scriptures say that he who endures to the end shall be saved. When we took this man alone, when we picked up this yoke, it's done with the understanding that, hey, I'm in this for the long haul. Is that what we talked about, Brother Tom? We talked about this over at the fish fry that time. I'm in this for the long haul. You know, I got to take it all the way to the end. And whether that comes sooner or later, I still got to walk it out. But I do so, why? Because I'm this great, holy so-and-so. No, I do it because it's what's pleasing to my Father. And that's what I want to do. And that should be the clarion call. That should be the heart's cry of everybody in this building, everybody out there in the Zoom room. That's what it should be. I want to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. So if I'm faithful over just a few things, he's going to make me ruler over many. And how many of those things that he puts me as a ruler over are going to be things that I probably struggled with back in this life? Because then I'm going to be the master of them, right? So if I stick it out, if I tough it out, hey, I'm going to be in a whole lot better place. Much better position. All right? I got to change my view. I got to change how I'm seeing stuff. I may be in a tight squeeze. But you know what? What we say, baby? If it's tight, but it's right. All right, verse 18, chapter 18, verses 1 through 3, please.
And Yahweh said to Aharon, you and your sons and your father's house with you are to bear the wickedness against the Mishdash. And you and your sons with you are to bear the wickedness against your kahuna, or your priesthood. But bring with you your brother of the tribe of Levi too, the tribe of your father, to join you and to serve you while you and your sons are with you before the tent of witness. And they shall guard your charge and the duty of all the tent, but they do not come near the furnishings of the Kadosh place and the altar, lest they die, both they and you.
See, now this is where, like I said, it kind of sounds a little contradictory, right? He tells it, go get Levi, go get the tribe, bring him in here to do this work, but don't let him come near the vessels and don't let him come near the furniture because they're going to die. This is what we were talking about earlier. There's different classes here, right? You've got those who are taking care of the more mundane things, and you've got those that are taking care of the more the holy vessels and all this kind of stuff, okay? But he puts every one of them in their own place. That's what I was talking about earlier. It's not for us to move ourselves from the place that he's put us and try to put ourselves somewhere else that we don't belong. It took everybody. It took the entire tribe, to shield the rest of the family, right? And to do the sacrifices and to carry the boards and to, make sure that the hangings were right. They had to have all of these things in place. And it took everybody. And even though this one may have worked inside and this one may have worked outside, they were all from the same family. It's just that they had a place, and they all had their own place to operate and work in. So they are a help. The Levites were a help to each other, right? But they were told that they were not to touch the equipment or the vessel because they were most holy, right? And why is that? Because they were appointed to do work, but they had not been anointed to touch the other stuff. We talk about, that Yahweh would have killed Aaron had it not been for what? The anointing oil, right? So these Levites, they're still Levites. They're still going to benefit from, the charity and the offerings of the rest of the family, right? And it's not like, just because you're from Eliezer's line doesn't mean that you're going to get a bigger piece of meat than that. You see what I'm saying? There was no difference. It's just that they weren't anointed to do so. But you know what? That's what Dawid said. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of Mael than to dwell amongst the tents of the wicked. Back in the day, we used to hear him talk about, just give me a little cabin over in the corner of heaven. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, y'all, I'm good. However I make it, when I make it there, whatever he sees fit to bless me, I'm good. Why? Because I made it. And that's it. I just want to make it. And then what he sees fit to do for me, whether it's, I'm by myself or whether it's 10 or 5 or 10 or 50 or 100 or what, I don't care. That's not important to me. just want to please my Father. And I just want to get to spend eternity with him. That's not much to ask. Right? And he ain't asking us to do a whole lot either. Love my son. Love my commandments. Love my word. Do what I told you to do and not what you want to do. Right? Like the song said, you can do what's right and you can do what you like. So let's do what's right. Let's do what's right. Verses 6 and 7, please.
And see, I myself have taken your brothers, the Levites, from the midst of the children of Israel, a gift to you given by Yahweh to do the service of the tent of appointment. But you and your sons with you are to guard your priesthood for all matters at the altar and behind the veil, and you shall serve. I have given you the kahuna, or the priesthood, as a gift for service, but the stranger who comes near is put to death.
And see, here's the thing. In the church, we were taught that the priesthood, that the Levites was the priesthood. That's what we were taught. We were never taught the fact that there are levels or positions or offices or however you want to call it. We were never taught that. So you can see where a person who doesn't understand that, reading this, would say, well, this doesn't make, how, it's contradictory. It doesn't make sense. No, it's not. What do we talk about in Hebrew class? Context. We got to have the context. That's how, you remember the scripture that we used towards the very beginning? And he gave some what? Apostles, some prophets, some teachers, some preachers, some evangelists. For what? For the perfecting of the saints and the edifying of the body. Who's the most important out of all of those? They're all even. They all do the same job, right? And it's the same thing here. That's the pattern. This is why we harp about patterns so much. If you are going to study the word, you've got to look for the pattern. Because I promise you, if it's a pattern, it will be repeated. That's what a pattern is, right? It's a repeated series of things. So we see it here. So when we see that in the New Testament, we should already understand. Oh yeah, well, he's talking just like they had in the temple, or just like they had in the tabernacle or Mishkan, just like they had in the sanctuary. We should pick that up. Bells and whistles, little alarms and stuff. We should see that. But if we're not taught how to study the word, we don't get it, do we, Reverend? So we got to know. We got to learn. Just always remain teachable. We've got to know. All right. So like I said, the Levites as a group, they were taken, right, by Yahweh. He said, instead of you guys doing all the, I'm going to accept Levi as my part. Right? But your job, the rest of you guys, you're going to have to support them. But I'm going to accept them. And they're going to do my service. Okay? So they were taken and chosen by Yahweh to act as ministers in the upkeep of the tabernacle, Mishkan. Right? But it was only Aaron's line that was there to perform the internal service of the tabernacle. And that's because Aaron, that was his promise. He was the high priest. Verses 8 through 14. Go ahead and read that if you don't mind.
And Yahweh spoke to Aharon, and see, I myself have also given you the charge of my contributions, all the set apart gifts of the children of Israel. I have given them to you for the anointing, and to your sons as a law forever. This is yours of the most kadosh gifts from the fire, all their offerings, all their grain offerings, all their sin offerings, all their guilt offerings, which they render to me, are most holy for you and your sons. Eat it in the most kadosh place. Every man eats it. It is kadosh to you. This also is yours, the contribution of their gift with all the wave offerings and the children of Israel. I have given them to you and your sons and your daughters with you as a law forever. Everyone who is clean in your house eats it. All the best of the oil, all the best of the new wine and the grain, their first fruits which they give to Yahweh. I have given them to you. The first fruits of all that is in their land, which they bring to Yahweh, are yours. Everyone who is clean in your house eats it. All that is dedicated in Israel is yours.
So what's he saying? He's saying that the best of the best belongs to you because you're doing my service. And his servants and his priests and those who perform his service are rewarded most of all. The scriptures tell us that the workman is worthy of his hire, right? So here they are ministering to the Almighty, and their payment is the offerings and the, all the wave offerings and the heave offerings and all these are all given to them because of what they do, because of their service. And he says that he's not going to forget your labor of love, right? And what's the rest of that? He's not going to forget your labor of love that you've shown towards his name, towards his name. Right. So when you perform your service for him, you're performing your service for his name, right? And when we are here and we perform our service for the Kiddushin, right? The set apart ones, right? When we perform our service, it's just like we're in the tabernacle, just like we're in the temple, right? Because I got news for you. This place don't run without boots on the ground. It don't. And so here's the thing. The scriptures also tell us that, and I don't remember exactly the wording, but it talks about his word, about his commandments. And it says, and in doing them, there is great reward. Great reward. I can't think of any greater reward than to get to spend eternity with my master, right? And he can pin me to the doorpost as many times as he wants to. And that's kind of what I look at, like all the things that I've gone through, all the things that have happened in my past, all of these things, these are all pieces where I had to make a decision. And I had to, the scriptures talk about the valley of decision, right? Talks about, hey, I had to make a decision and I had to say, what's more important? Is going off and doing my own thing more important? Or is becoming one with his doorpost? Is that more important? You see what I'm saying? Pin me to the door. I ain't got nowhere better to be. That's for sure. None of us do. Yes, sis.
That's Psalms 19:11.
Okay, thank you. Psalm 19 and 11.
Psalms 19, verse 11. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and keeping them there is great reward.
There's great reward. No greater reward. All right, verses 15 through 19, it talks about redemption. Okay, so everything that opens the matrix of all flesh, so everything that is born, right, which they bring unto Yahweh, whether it be of men or beasts, shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man you shall surely redeem, and the firstling of unclean beasts you shall redeem. So when it talks about unclean beasts, remember, a donkey is an unclean creature. A horse is an unclean creature. Okay? Dogs and cats are unclean creatures. All right? So we can still own them. It's when they are dead that it becomes an issue. Yeah, no taxidermy. Thank you, Sister Shelby. Great, great, great. She said, so no taxidermy. Okay. Once they shuffle off this mortal coil, bury them. Okay. They need to go back to the earth that they came from. Okay. So again, those beasts, and when we really think about it, man is an unclean creature too. Okay. Well, he told him before, don't do no cannibalism. Don't be doing that stuff you see out there. All right. But my point is, we can have unclean creatures as pets and stuff, okay? But we're not supposed to eat them, and we don't make them more important than Yahweh's house. We don't make them more important than our fellow man. And we don't make them more important than, I was including our children in our fellow men, but that's we have to remember that man is here. Animals are, no matter how much we love them, man is here, animals are here. Okay. And I'm not going to take, much as I love Ziggy, I'm not going to take him and lift him up over Chris. That's not just not, that's not a thing. There has been much more medical bills on that cat. But if it came between you and him, he's got to go. That's just all there is to it. So like I said, redemption, the idea of redemption is not, it's not a new concept. When they brought the half shekel, what was that? That was redemption, right? Mom, how many goats have you redeemed? See, so we still carry it forward into this day. Yeah. So we continue to do that. If we expect him, or if we want him to redeem us, the concept must still be in play. Concept of redemption must still be in action, right? I seen that look, Sister Shelby, giving that side eye. But like I said, redemption is not a new concept. And then 20 through 32, we're not going to go through all that because that's a lot to read. But let's look at it this way. He goes back through and he's like, you guys don't have an inheritance, right? But they don't have an inheritance, yet they get the best of everything. And it's kind of like us. Think about this. And I want to end it on this, okay? Think about this. It reminds me, and this really hit me when I was sitting there at home, when I was writing my notes and looking at it, really hit me. This reminds me very, very much of us. Okay? At least from a Shane Wilson and Tamara Jenkins viewpoint, because I can't speak to anybody else. But I know how my mom always felt, and I know how I always felt. This reminds me of us in a way, because up until a few years ago, about 20 years ago, up until that point, we had no identity. We had no heritage. All right? The only thing we had was man-made religion and rebranded pagan holy days. That's all we had. And we laugh about it. But, you know, we kind of felt lost our whole life because we had nothing to fall back on or to say, we had nothing to identify with. Ma'am? Okay. We had nothing to identify. Yes, we had family. We didn't even know anything about them. You know, we had nothing but man-made religion and renamed, rebranded, repackaged pagan holy days. That's all we had. But at one point, like I said, about 20 years ago, maybe a little more, at one point, that empty heritage was taken away from us. And it was replaced with the best of the best. And I'm talking about his word, his written word, and his son, the word made flesh. Now, he said, he talks about the heritage of Jacob. And that's what we got now. Now, we didn't have nothing before. We just had the cast-offs, the secondhand. We had the stuff that was left over. That's what we had. But now, think about this. And it should put a smile on your face. Because of his son, because of the Father, because of the Elohim that we serve, even though we were not a people, now we are a people. And even though we didn't have mercy, now we do. So like I said, you know, the scriptures tell us that he takes the solitary and puts them in families, right? So we may not have had much of a family in the way of flesh, but look at the daddy we have now. We didn't have an inheritance, but now we got the best of the best. And like I said, that ought to make every one of us smile. That ought to lift your spirits. That ought to make your heart happy. That ought to make your heart glad. Because you are part of something that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts. So anyway, I'm going to end it right there. I could say more, but I've yammered on enough. But anyway, I want y'all to know that we love you, we appreciate you, and we thank you for spending your Shabbat day with us. We're going to